Talk to me. What does that mean?
So I think I'm built to be with people and be around people and to really make people feel comfortable around me. And I think where I've been an evangelist at Adobe, because I've moved on now, but where I was, for the past year or so, I feel like I'm made in a test tube for that.
Hello and welcome to Finding My User Manual, podcast all about learning how to be human when no one gave you the instructions. My name is Tigz and I am an empowerment photographer based in London, UK. And today I have the privilege of being joined by the one and only Emily Bisset. Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this. Thank you so much for having me on here. I've watched a couple of the episodes and I've just been so excited to just sit just chat about the way I think about things a lot. I'm excited for that.
I'm so excited to have this chat with you. We, for context, for anyone listening, met at the Adobe Max London last year.
Yes.
And it was actually a couple of days before there was a summit that happened. And I remember you were sat on the sofa at the back of the room. My table was just next to yours. I remember just turning around thinking, oh my gosh, you're such a fabulous human. It was a full energy, vibrant. I can't remember what colour you were wearing, but it was a full on.
I remember you were wearing pink.
I was wearing pink. I think we actually bonded over the colour pink.
I was like, who is she? Where is she?
So for anyone who is listening and has maybe not had the privilege of meeting you yet, let me give you a glowing introduction. So Emily Bisset is a creative technologist, speaker, community builder, and by her own unofficial title, Adobe's Chief Karaoke Officer. With a background as one of Adobe's best-known 3D evangelists, Emily has spent years helping creatives embrace new tools within the creative 3D ecosystem, helping them to navigate an ever-evolving creative landscape with curiosity. Known for her warmth, wit, and ability to make even the most complex tech feel accessible through inclusivity and a gloriously heavy dose of the color pink, she's become a trusted voice in the creative industries. Beyond the titles and the tech, though, Emily is someone deeply passionate about people, the building of creative communities, the stories we tell ourselves, and the wonderfully messy reality of being human while trying to create meaningful work, which makes her a perfect guest for the podcast. And it is such a delight to have you here.
That was fantastic. Oh my gosh.
I do love a good intro. Also,
really
I love when I also love when someone gives you that big intro and you can just walk in and just own it, just be like, yeah, that's me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is me. She's right.
So let me ask you the all-important question. If you came with a user manual, what would it say on page 1?
Optimized for public... Wait, God, oh my gosh, I've sent it to you. Optimized for human connection. It was human connection, wasn't it? So optimized for human connection, but factory settings not publicly available.
Which I thought was the best phrase ever.
There's many words in there. I was like, which way round do they go?
It is so iconic. So talk to me, what does that mean?
So I think I'm built to be with people and be around people and to really make people feel comfortable around me. And I think where I've been an evangelist at Adobe, because I've moved on now, but where I was, for the past year or so, I feel like I'm made in a test tube for that. And I think my personality really matches that kind of job, because that job itself as an evangelist, for any company, is you are educating, inspiring, and advocating for the community. And I really just want to talk about the advocation, I think, as well. Because within the community, you want to be that face, that friendly face that people can come to. They go, oh, I don't know what, there's this big tech company or whatever company it is, but there are these faces that are completely human and very approachable in there that I can come and talk to or moan to or give my feedback to. And I feel like I really was the right person to help facilitate that, because I have a very casual approach to things, particularly when I'm educating people. I teach people in a very casual, friendly way, because I think when you teach people, you want people to ask silly questions. Like, that's the best way of teaching, in my opinion. And people are scared to ask questions sometimes, particularly when, you're teaching something technical or something like that. And so my personality is made for stuff like that. But I think sometimes it works so well that people don't realize there's more going on behind it, rather than I'm just there sort of blithering away at people. And people don't realize that there's a lot of thought going into that. There's a lot of balancing out how I am with people in order to make them usually feel comfortable, but sometimes feel inspired or sometimes feel empowered to ask questions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of balance going on there. And I think I've had it before when people have met me at events, usually sometimes people that I work with or that are meeting me on a bit more of a professional level, and they see the way I am with people at events and go, she's just a clown. Like, you know, she's doing all this chatting and this sort of fun, sometimes dancing, sometimes karaoke as well. It's a very important part of the job.
Absolutely.
But they see this character that I am, and there's always something going on behind it. Most of the time. Maybe sometimes there's a bit where I get a bit lax with it. But for the most part, you know, I'm constantly thinking about how am I getting perceived? How can I make this person feel comfortable to ask me questions or feel comfortable, you know, to learn something from me? You know, and that works a lot with evangelism, you know, where we want to advocate for the community. And I will also say community advocation works both ways.
Yeah.
So I want to obviously tell the community about Adobe's cool new tools or new features and everything. Like, that's obviously part of the job. But also inside of Adobe is advocating for the community inside.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that, because it's one of those things where you don't really hear about it unless it's gone wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because we're constantly trying to push new things in directions that will benefit the community, right? And that involves having a voice and really being quite forceful with it sometimes, making sure that things go the way we want it for our community. But then when it does go the other way, when it goes, you know, more business oriented or something like that, people hear about it. They go, oh. But there's so much going on behind the scenes that, you know, I won't go into, but there's a lot going on in there. And I think that is where those factory settings that I talk about in sort of the last part of that sentence, where they're not publicly available, that's where they come into it. Because we're not public facing then, we're, you know, in a meeting or something.
Yeah.
And it's a different Emily they get in that meeting. And sometimes when people have met me at an event, they think that's all the Emily they're getting. And then when we see me in a business meeting or, you know, not public facing, it's just a different person in there. And I think until they meet that person, they probably just have one perception of it, which is okay, because that is how I like to present myself. And it's a risk I calculate when presenting myself in that way. You know, there is that risk of people just going, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's nice to use that in a way because that makes people feel more comfortable.
Yes.
I don't know. I can talk a lot about it, and I think I would get very boring, but I find it very interesting how to balance certain things with it. I guess you find that too, right?
Well, yeah, because I suppose, I mean, as someone who I went through an autism diagnosis last year, and so I've been doing a lot of work on unmasking, like, at the end of the day, who am I? Like, am I the version of me at 16? Am I the version of me at sort of 18 when I was going through like university? Was that me? Because my fashion had changed, the way that I spoke had changed. And then when I came out of university and I got very, very into the burlesque scene, and so there was definitely a more glam version of me who wore bodycon dresses and a lot of like wiggle dresses and, you know, very vintage at that time. And then there was like my later 20s, and I mean, it wasn't quite as vintage, but definitely, you know, I'd gone from maybe more of a 50s to more of a 40s, 30s kind of vibe. And there are all these different versions of me. And it's like, I'm so aware now, looking back on it, that actually I was leaning into how do I communicate with people? How do I fit into these spaces? Yeah. And I think it's something that I have done all the way through my life. And now, having the privilege of knowing through a diagnosis that that is part of my personality, and actually stripping that back and going, well, okay, well, which version of them is me, or am I all of them? Am I actually a chameleon?
Yeah.
But I have this entire, like, almost 40-year history of being able to mask myself incredibly well into a room. And Connor, who is sat over to my side here, who has also been on the podcast, we had a good chat about autism and all the different sort of ways that we have shown up as well. You often describe it as the tism riz, don't you?
Tism riz.
Connor is not mic'd up, so you might hear him shouting in the background. But there is also, as an autistic person, that we have both experienced, that there is a comfort that comes when you meet us, that people quite often feel so relaxed and will talk to us about conversations that they might not have opened up to anyone else. And especially as a boudoir photographer and going into those spaces where people are in their most intimate, vulnerable selves, it's so interesting. And it's a really interesting topic that you're experiencing that even from an advocacy community role as well.
I think, you must feel the same when you want people to feel comfortable around you so that they can completely, let those sort of inhibitions away. I think that's also, how I feel about when I do this kind of, these community events and everything. I want them to feel comfortable around me. And when I talk about balancing it, it's looking at how they are with me, their body language, the way they are in their face and everything, and what they're saying to me, how they're reacting to things. It's all an ongoing calculation. Every single response they have, be it vocal or like just like a physical or just like a vibe kind of response, I'm constantly then balancing where my next move is going to go. It's all like a big game of chess. I don't have an autism diagnosis. I'm completely raw dogging this. There is no, don't ask, don't tell. Like, I've never done that, but I have a feeling that that's probably quite a big trait of that, is sort of recognizing what they're doing and then having a response to it. And that's how I found when I balance these things, if someone's a little bit shy, I'll probably say something or do something a little bit embarrassing to come down to that level where we're both, can be in a sense that we're a bit shy or I've just embarrassed myself, and then bring them back up to my level. The same way if someone's a bit forward with me, it happens sometimes, I'll then do something either embarrassing or I'll talk to them in a bit more of a serious way, like just to balance it out. And every reply or every back and forth in this tennis game that we're playing all has a calculation. And again, I've not really spoken to anyone at length about this before, probably in a bar or something when I've had a drink, but not so candidly.
Just like this.
Right. This is the perfect place for it. This is vodka. But it's really interesting, and the science behind it of just balancing these scales is just so interesting to me. And I think I've always done that. Like what you've been saying, like throughout your life, you've kind of always been doing, optimizing yourself for human connection, right?
Yeah.
And I also believe that every 5 to 7 years, you're a different person.
Well, yes. So I believe, I will try and find the study and put it in the show notes for this, but I believe every cell in your body is changed every 7 years.
No way.
Yeah, so technically you are a different person. I believe it's 7 years.
Yeah, either way, like it feels like I live my life in 5 to 7 year eras. Yeah. And so when you were explaining that, I was like, wow, that's the same as me. Like, and I go through these different eras, and I am different people in it. And I love the era I'm in now, but I loved the eras I was in, in previous ones as well. And there's always interesting things to be had from them, but it's also very interesting to see who you were and sort of compartmentalize that and be like, oh, that was my era when I was doing more of this, and now I'm in a different era. And it's crazy, right? And I think a lot of people must feel that, but not everyone is like stepping back and having a look at it. Because I've had conversations with people before where we've talked about this, and they've been like, I think I'm every 5 to 7 years, I'm a different person. And I think your tastes change. I think what you enjoy changes. That's part of growing up, right? But I think also how I don't think how I speak to people and how I balance conversations, I don't think that's changed. I think I've just honed it a little bit more because with evangelism, I've used it a lot.
Yeah.
But even at school, I think I was still doing that because I would, how in high school we kind of have food chains, right? I went to a girls' school. It was very prominent there.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And I loved it. I loved school. Not everyone did. I really enjoyed it. But I found that I could belong to lots of different friend groups if I wanted to, because it's just it's just a change of face, you know, and you suit it.
Yeah.
And I enjoy learning about people, particularly people that are doing different things. And so I would flip between them, you know, every couple of months.
Yeah.
Find a different friend group. It meant that I didn't have any solid.
Same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. I used to say I could never work out, like everyone at school knew who I was. In my high school, you know, everyone would say hello, but I didn't get invites out necessarily at weekends. So when people were organising, you know, if they were going, we lived nearish a swimming pool that had like the flumes and whatever.
Love that.
And so people would organise them, but I wouldn't get the invite. Or that, you know, there was another group that I'd flip between and they'd go out, but then I wouldn't get an invite to that. And I very much would just kind of go between, and even sort of, you know, thinking back to like year 10, year 11, sort of nearer the end for me, there was the heavy metal band that were in the year, or rock band in the year above, and I sort of like would spend some time with them. And then there was like the emo kids, and I'd be over there. And then there was like there was a group of girls that all used to hang out, and then there was the netball team, and I'd be like over there. But I also I leaned into everything. I was on every sports team, every choir, every band, like you name it.
Like we're like the same person.
I think we are.
This is a great place to realize this, but I think we have had like the exact same experiences, because it was the same for me. Like, you know, I could flip between groups, and maybe for a period, like I could get invited to maybe one thing, but when it came down to it. And I would struggle with this a lot too. I'd be like, God, who can I like call upon to hang out with now? Because I love being alone, but then I get to the point where I'm like, okay, it's time to hang out.
Oh, yeah, I'm bouncing off the walls. Maybe I should speak to someone else.
Yeah. I'm getting a bit. There's a little bit too many Emilys talking at the table at the moment, and now I need to go talk to someone real, right? And so who do I phone up? Because I'm friends with everyone, but also not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I think I eventually found like a nice group of people that I really settled in. More towards the end, but there were many years of just sort of jumping between, because I didn't really know who I was in myself. And I think you're probably the same as this as well. Now that you're sort of grown up from that, you can now sort of whittle it down to this is what I actually am. Maybe it's still a couple of different Tigzes or different Emilys, but there's certainly fewer.
I'm definitely getting down there.
Yeah.
And also like looking back now and going, okay, but which parts of me did I like the most? Which bits did I enjoy being the most? And actually, like today I've got some brand new trainers on. I mean, the best way I can describe them is like the Buffalo brand. And I loved them when I was a teenager. And I saw them on my recent trip to Japan and was like, you know what, I really liked her. And also she was tall, she looked great. So I was like, yeah, I'm rocking probably about a 3-inch platform trainer today.
A tall platform trainer.
Yeah. Yeah, but
sick.
just leaning into the parts of myself that I'm like, that made me happy.
And I think just having those little bits that you're sort of picking off, what I found as well, because I like all the little bits, I found that these groups that I would try and hang out with, I liked them, they're all lovely people, but it didn't quite fit exactly. And so now I'm picking all of them. I find I'm quite a
collector of people?
Yes.
In different countries?
And I have lots of yes.
Yeah.
And I have lots of different friends. But again, to phone someone up and be like, hey, let's hang out. I struggle with that still, even to this day. Because I have all these lovely people that I know from different parts, mostly from work, but also from other places as well. We're all dotted around the country and, you know, there's no specific group. And I noticed that, you know, when I look on socials and everything, the people that were in these groups in school, they're still in groups that they sort of hang out with. Whereas I think I have a group, but again, we're sort of split. But I'm just sort of on my own for a bit. And then sort of sometimes I'll get invited to a place, but then I'm like, oh, is this really me? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I enjoy my company alone. Very much so. Oh, yeah.
I'm very happy. Going to the cinema alone was one of my favourite things to do. I used to have a unlimited pass for Cineworld, and I used to go in the middle of the day, and I was like, be like 5 of us in the cinema, all on our own. I was like, it was great.
I think that unlocks something. My sister went through doing that, and she said it was just the most one. It was like her favourite thing to do.
Yeah.
To go to the cinema on her own.
Yeah.
I feel the same. I go down to the beach and watch ships. I have a love for ships. So I go and I watch them just on my own though, and I think it's lovely. But I've noticed even this weekend, like I was down there on my own and everything, everyone's in groups and pairs. And I'm like, guys, are you not seeing these ships? Are you guys not watching this? Like just on your own in your own sort of thing? But I think I think also in my job where there's so many social interactions all condensed into one event. I mean, like Max London was one of them, and I'm sure you find when you go to photography events as well, there's all these very high energy interactions all in like one day almost, or a couple of days. And like, I found that, especially for the Maxes out in LA and Miami, even though I wasn't drunk, not for all of it, but during the days when I wasn't drunk, I felt drunk afterwards. I felt like, oh my God.
It's a hangover. Is it like literally a social hangover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything's in pieces. I can't piece together like what my day looked like because I saw all these people and I couldn't tell you when it was. And I think it's what's happening is I'm having these very high energy interactions where I am playing this balance game. And obviously it's different for different people. Everyone needs a different way of balancing.
Yeah.
And I've just got so caught up in that and everything. And then afterwards, the hangover, the social hangover.
Yeah. And it genuinely feels like a hangover as well. It's really hard to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. Like, I don't actually get it so much on podcasts because, you know, we're recording 5 episodes today. I've got 5 of my favorite people coming in, obviously yourself included. And so this recharges me. And so tomorrow, though, I have got a day off mostly from work. I'm going to go get my nails done because they really need doing. I'm hiding them from the camera right now.
I love that.
And I have a couple of phone calls booked in with people who I also know are going to recharge me rather than leaning into, like, I know, for example, I could not book a boudoir shoot with a client tomorrow because I would not show up as my best self.
Yeah.
I would be mentally sort of exhausted and
I think you sound like you've got that figured out. Maybe you don't feel
I have
it
now.
all the time, but you've got this regime. And at Adobe, we've been working more and more with content creators. And my first question to them, most of the time when I corner them in the bar or in the room, and I go, how do you keep it up? How do you keep up this energy showing up to these things? Because they're going to events as well, but they're also creating content and talking to people online, what seems like every single day. And I think some of the more seasoned folk in there, they have built a routine around it.
Yeah.
And they can understand when they're feeling fatigued and know when to take those breaks. And like you were saying, book in things that recharge you. They know what recharges them, what doesn't. What they do is, the more seasoned ones, they tend to know what recharges them, know when to do that so that they're not getting fatigued and understanding what recharges them and when they can do that. And I think, I don't know if I've really learned that skill yet. I think I'm just giving it my all. I also don't have full control over what I do because it is
for sure. Yeah.
It's just a full-time job that a company is paying me to do, right? I can't really have full control over that. But I find I always question how they do it and try and take tips from them, how they do it. And you're one of these people. I think you're a very good person to try and follow with this kind of thing. Like, for me, like hosting a podcast, I find that, like, I did 3 in one day at Off Barcelona. And perhaps it was because not all of them I knew totally well. And so I felt like I had to be really switched on and not coming across as someone who doesn't know like what she's talking about and everything. But I felt very tired after that. I think we still had another day of the festival. And again, it's all this showing up, high energy stuff. And so, do you have tips? Can you give me a tip?
Yeah. Do you know, one of the best ones I ever heard, and it was talking about successful people. And I mean, take of this what you will and what you won't. But it said that successful people don't stay in the room for the whole time. So they turn up for the bits that they need to. So like if they were to attend a social event and it was, say, 6 till 10, and the important bit was sort of 7 till 9, they'll go in for the bit and they will fill up their cup within that time. So like I had an event the other day, which I was so excited to go to, and it was 7 till 9, but I had to travel and it was an hour there, and then it was at least an hour, but sometimes with trains it takes a bit longer sometimes to get back because of connections. So I already knew that I had 2.5 hours to travel and like 7 till 9. And they did a little thing at 9 o'clock saying, welcome, it's so great to have you here. And it didn't finish. So it was still going. Like it was 7 till 9 was the bit that was structured, and then like I think it was like going off into the evening. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I said I'd be here 7 till 9, and actually I'm gonna take my energy. I'm going to go home. I got home at a decent hour. I managed to have some actual food at a decent time. Whereas I think 20-something-year-old me was like, go, we need to be there. We need to be there every second of every day. We need to show up. I'm going to stay there. I've always been told that the best networking happens at the bar. So we're going to go to the bar. And I mean, the photography show is a huge event for me every year. Yeah. And that's 10 till 5, I believe, most days, sometimes 10 till 4. Right. And then there's normally like a specific networking thing until about 6, 7, and then you're expected to go out for dinner, and then it was like, hey, come to the bar. And sometimes we'd be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I could do that in my 20s, but I'm like, no, you know what, I'm going to specify. And actually, not the last one, I was only there for a couple of days, but the one before that, I was like, you know what, no, I'm going to the cinema. And I literally put out an invite going, I'm going to the cinema. June's on, or June 2, I can't remember which one it was. Yeah. I'm going to the cinema. Does anyone want to come? We can all sit in the same room together, but in silence, in aircon, and watch a film. And a few people were like, actually, yeah, let's do it. So I still got to socialize, I still got to network and still have that connection with people. Yeah. None of us had to speak to each other or get overstimulated. And I was like, I think I've cracked this. Yeah. And then the next day I felt so much better. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I do like to have a drink now and then, but at the same time, I'm like, I need my sleep. I do need my sleep these days. 100%. So some days I'll go out, and on the days it matters, or if I'm with people and I'm like, you know, I know that this is going to end up being one of those nights that we're going to talk about forever and the vibes are on, I will lean in. But every so often I'm like, yeah, no, we need a cinema date and an early night.
That is the cinema is such a smart thing as well. Because then you're still doing your bit, and then you're not. Yeah. You don't have to put in. That's working smarter, not harder.
And if you're constantly, I mean, I do feel like we're quite similar in this. If you're spending a lot of time gauging how a conversation is going and matching the tone of a person, if you're not having to do the speaking, but you can just be in their presence, oh God, it removes like half, or probably even more than half of what you're having to put in energetically to meet that person where they are as well.
Yeah, 100%. And do you know what? Since becoming an evangelist, I think I was an evangelist for 1.5 years, but I'd worked for Adobe. I think I've been there 4.5 years. So I was like a 3D technical artist when I started. Yeah. And that was on the Substance team, and those guys are great. Like, so many of them are like true friends of mine as well. And I was so in awe, and I think I was like 24, 25 when I joined. And this was like my first like proper full-time gig since working at McDonald's. That was my other full-time gig.
Was it? Amazing.
Like, technically I was like a freelancer or a contractor after I'd gone to uni. So technically my only other full-time permanent position other than Adobe is McDonald's. And that I will always hold that in my heart. But when I first came to Adobe, and we had like events and stuff, and I could go and I could network, and like I would be on like a business trip. I did one business trip at McDonald's, and that was to go to McDonald's University in East Finchley to take my management exams. And I felt like hot shit. I was like, oh my God, I'm going on a business trip and then like go back to like my restaurant and everything. But coming to Adobe, I was so excited to do all of this stuff, and I met so many amazing people, as you do at all of these events. And I think I kept that up until probably the last year, like here. And just went to everything. Never said no to something. Went everywhere, just like you were saying, like how you could go to a bar and do all your networking and everything. And I made great connections. But then in evangelism, when I got to this team, I noticed that a lot of the evangelists, they wouldn't be going out all this time. Yeah. And at the time I was like, I wonder why they do that, because you miss so many great opportunities. And now I've done it, I get it. Yeah. I understand why they do go home afterwards, or they don't spend the whole time at the event. They show up, they do their talk or whatever it is that they're there to do, and then they take time to themselves in the hotel. And then maybe they go out to dinner afterwards, but they take that time. And it's taken a lot of learning for myself to be able to say no to things like that.
Because the FOMO is so real.
The FOMO is real.
Yes.
Oh, and I feel like I just love being around people, and I feel like I drive energy to like have a good time and for people to feel comfortable. Again, like what we're doing, like with balancing and everything. I almost feel obligated to be there so that people have like a good time. And it's then like pouring into your own cup and not their cup.
Yes, 100%.
That takes practice.
Are you, I feel like I know the answer to this question. Are you an extrovert?
I think that Emily is, yes. I think a lot of evangelists I found as well, they're very extroverted at an event, but inside and like in general, they're quite introverted, which I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why they can balance it so well, because they can go be an extrovert and then they come back and they don't have as much FOMO from that because they prefer to sort of be with themselves. And I wonder if, I think I definitely lean further to the extrovert side of things.
I'd say so.
But then I love being alone and being on my own and being quite quiet. Like after an event with the social hangover, I just shut myself away.
Yeah, what do you do on those days?
Oh, I do some nice cooking. I cook. I'm not a very good cook, but I try. And then all of this weekend, actually, I've been doing painting.
I saw this on your Instagram stories.
Yes.
So tell us about painting.
Thank you. I will tell you about painting. I'm so glad someone's asked me about it. I think it's really interesting for a lot of people who are quite technical or work with tech a lot. They love to go work with their hands when they're not at work. And I think that's really interesting as to why that is. And I found that with my friends that are maybe less in the creative industry, but they are, like, they're on their phone a lot. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that are just on their phone a lot. And I can't stand that. I think where we had to do a lot of content creation and engagement online, it sort of soured my taste to it. So I'm like, oh, that's work. I don't want to do that. The minute I clock off, get away. I don't want it. And so I like to make things with my hands and just, I sit, I put music on, no one's bothering me. I just paint. And I'm not very good at it. Like, I'm not, I don't think I'm like an amazing painter. I also struggle with creative ideas a lot. I always admire that with the creatives we work with at Adobe. Like, they're obviously very talented and they have this amazing skill. But the thing I probably admire most about creatives is their ability to make creative decisions. Because I struggle so much making decisions, particularly creative ones. And so, again, one of the first things I ask creative people is, how do you know that looks good? And a lot of the time they're like, oh, well, it's just this sort of gut feeling and I know which direction to go in and everything. I'm always like, well, how do you know how to do that? And so I think painting helps me practice making creative decisions because there's no Control Z, there's no, you know, and so you have to make that, you have to go with that color and you have to make those decisions. And I think decision making like that, and in other parts of life, it doesn't have to be in a creative world, it takes practice to make those decisions. And I think especially for me, I am so scared of getting it wrong, and you have to practice not being scared.
Yes.
And painting helps with that because you have to, I don't know if you get it as well, like not wanting to make a mistake.
Absolutely. My big thing is actually sketchbooks. I prefer to work on single, when I'm doing art or, you know, for fun.
Yeah.
It is very much single sheets or single canvases because I feel the pressure of a sketchbook. If I've done really good stuff on page 1, but then I'm not so great on page 2, this clearly is something I have to work on still. But yeah, I feel the pressure of living up to the standard and, you know, having that across that. So it's something I definitely need to lean into more.
I think people, I mean, I do. I find it the same with content creation as well. Like if I make a video I'm really proud of, there's almost that like scariness of, oh my God.
What comes next?
Like now I got to make another one and it's got to be as good, if not better. I think it's the same when you're making art as well. I found that, you know, when I was making 3D art, which I'm not doing as much anymore, but maybe I will in future, who knows? But like I would make something, I'd be like, man, this is amazing. And then I'd just get this fear of, oh my God, what if the next thing doesn't look like I've improved? What if people think I'm going backwards? And there's all that fear and like expectation. And so when I go and I paint something, or if you're sketching, there's no expectation to that because I accept that, you know, maybe I'm like not the best painter, but I have a lot of fun with it. And that just relieves me of that. Oh my God, I don't have to worry about whether it's going to turn out good or not. I can just practice making creative decisions and just rolling with it, which I think is really lovely. I'd love to be more spontaneous in my creativity. I admire people that are, but...
Why you painted on your bank holiday weekend? I'd say that was pretty spontaneous.
I think so, but then like you have like these creatives that are going and they just make this thing and it just looks beautiful. they've honed that skill. Like, I understand that, and it's taken, you know, to get a creative eye and everything.
Yeah.
But I'm still always in awe of it. And I think in my position as an evangelist, I got to work with so many amazing, talented creators such as yourself, Tigz.
Thanks.
I'm so grateful to have met all these people and to get the opportunity to talk to them and to ask them questions, because the secret is that my art isn't very good. Objectively, if I looked at it, I'm not the best 3D artist out there. I never was. I enjoyed, making materials. That's what got me the job at Adobe. But there are always people out there that are better. It's not like that was why they hired, because I was the best. But I get to talk to people that are almost at the top of this sort of creative food chain. They are so well known and they're so talented and everything. And to be able to be in a room and to be able to ask them stuff and talk to them, I think that's probably why I always feel so drunk, because I'm so scared. I don't want to embarrass myself. I want to ask them about things, but I don't want to seem like I'm too uncool or fangirling a little bit. I'm
going to totally challenge you on that belief.
Okay.
Because clearly you are good enough because you've got the job that you're in. But also, I do think that art is so subjective. The person who's looking at it is the person who is deciding. And if I think back to my time in university and some of the feedback that I was getting on some of the art that I was creating at the time, who actually decides that art is good? Who actually gets to say, this is great and this is not? I mean, financially, if you're doing it for a career and you're not getting anyone paying you, it doesn't necessarily also mean that it's bad art. It just might mean that you are not the right artist for that period in time.
That's a good way of putting it.
Because I came out of university and Dave McKean, who does a lot of the Neil Gaiman illustrations, was one of my, it was literally iconic for me. That's who I wanted to be. I had the book, I think it was, I swapped my dad for 2 goldfish. It's something along those, or the day, it's something about 2 goldfish. And I had fallen in love with that and the art style in it. And so a lot of the work I was creating in university was kind of that similar sort of style. So very photo collagey, very digital photo manipulation. I was taking some photos, I was scanning in textures. I loved what I was doing. And I mean, look, I look back on it now and I'm like, yeah, okay, it could have been more polished. But it didn't matter because at that time when I graduated, it was not the style. No one was using it. It wasn't in demand. And so I ended up switching into photography. However, 5 years later, that style was everywhere. So if I had maybe come out of uni a few years later, perhaps I would still be doing digital photo manipulation.
Yeah.
And so it could be your art is incredible, but it's right, wrong time, right style, wrong time. It could be that you're not finding audiences that are appreciating the work you do. However, you're also put in a position where the work that you are creating is inspiring other people to go and create incredible work. So actually, where is the value in the work? Is it in receiving money directly into your bank balance or being paid to, inspire people at the top of their fields?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think in my sort of, let's call it a year and a half of evangelism, towards the end, I finally let go of that a little bit. And I could see it in my work as well. I started creating things that weren't anything too technical or took a lot of time. It was just fun things that I thought looked cool and everything. And then I would just put it out there. And it wasn't, obviously with the content creation, it has to be a bit quicker as well. And 3D is something that takes a long time for a lot of things. And I found that it was very hard to keep up with things constantly doing 3D. But it was nice because it let me explore all these new mediums. And I could just sort of put out there whatever I felt like. And that was kind of the first time in my career that I've been able to just focus on what do I want to put out there, you know? And I think 3D is an interesting one too, because as a 3D artist, you are constantly, more or less, you want to get a job in the industry, right? And so you are building stuff that has to be physically accurate, or it has to use these techniques that the industry requires. And yes, it is art, but it's not your own creativity flowing through that, unless you're designing your own character and everything. But the fundamental of it, like building something out of polygons, you're usually following a piece of concept art, or you're following a tech pack, or whatever it is. And so what I was doing, at least in my career as a 3D artist, I worked in visualization. someone had already done the design. They were just asking me to then build it. And so whilst there is creativity in that, in how you build a certain thing, it's not your own designs going into it. And so where I'd come from there, and now in this position as an evangelist, I was like, oh my gosh, I can make the creative decisions.
Freedom.
And it was also really scary. Like I say, I'm not very good at making these decisions because I haven't had to do that before. It's still quite a new thing for me, even though, you know, technically I've been working for a while. It was just new way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And so I always admire the creators that we work with. Like, how do they come up with this stuff? What's inside your brain? And when I was doing these podcasts at Off Barcelona, I got to speak to all of these really awesome creators that had done all this lovely work and everything. And I just couldn't help myself. I was like, let me inside your brain. Let me see it. I want to know what your process is. Because I think where I'm trying to calculate everything and compartmentalize it into this quite technical thing, creativity is just this very nice fluid thing, and it's just a different way of using that muscle, I suppose. And I'm just not used to it. And I think when I see these lovely creatives and they build all this, you know, a lot of surrealist stuff as well, I'm like, how are they thinking about this? Like, how does it work? And I think that's just training your brain in a different way. And my brain wasn't trained that way. And so now I get to try and do it the other way. I don't know.
In the last year or so, when you've been in this role, from those questions and the podcast that you've done as well, what have you learned? Like, what have you learned from these conversations with other creatives?
So much. So much stuff. Like, oh, what are the main points that I probably learned? Stuff about having limits on things, like setting your own boundaries with it. And it's not just about creativity either. It's almost like what we were talking about with content creators, how they set their boundaries and they know how they like to work. And particularly most of the people I worked with as an evangelist, like they were freelance or they were owning a small studio and everything. And so they had to figure out how to balance their time. And that's something I have struggled with too as a freelancer, because I would go in these periods of not doing anything and panic. I'm like, oh my God, like how do I now spend this time? And so learning kind of the admin-y side of that. I don't want to call it admin. It's not boring. It's
just admin. It's the bits, the non-creative parts of running a business.
Exactly. And then the other side of that is just understanding like how to let go of things and when to let go of things, when to let that sort of almost creative instinct, when to let it take over. Because I don't think I'm very good with instinct and following instinct. I think I struggle with when people say follow your heart and not your brain. I don't think I can follow my heart. I think that's like a really scary thing to me. Like everything I build around me, even like the relationships I have with people close to me, they're all part of like a calculation. Like, and I do follow my heart to a certain extent, but I never let that only be my guide. And I think with creativity, you want to let that emotion into your work. Like that's what I think makes good artwork and good creativity, that intent. And, you know, this is a big discussion people are having at the moment where we have like AI art and everything. Like, is it art? Is it doing this? And for me, I've discovered that if it has intent, if it has emotion to it, if it has creative thought, then that does count. And I don't really personally mind how it's made as long as it has that intent, as long as there's that thought behind it and what they're conveying comes through. And you have to have emotion in that to do it.
Yes, an innate humanness to the work.
And I struggle with putting emotion into things because I'm like, well, what if it doesn't work out? And so seeing people do that and watching them talk about their process, like on these podcasts, you know, I even had an AI creator on there and we talked about AI and everything. And I don't want to commandeer this and talk about AI and everything, but the way she talked about her process was the exact same way these big creators were talking about the intent, the planning, the getting all of your references together, understanding why she's making that creative decision and not going for a different one. All of this stuff is the same as other artists are going through when they are building out a piece of art. And that kind of was like like it was an opening door in my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, it's the same process and she's putting her emotion into it. It's just a different tool. And we don't need to discuss that too much here, but learning how to do that and learning how to make those creative decisions, constantly thinking about it.
There's actually, you've met her, Holly Rose Stones.
Yes.
She has done an episode of the podcast, which is out. So if anyone is listening or watching this and wants to go back, actually, we had a really interesting discussion because she's currently working on, but she didn't announce it. Actually, should it be a surprise? So if you haven't watched it yet, spoilers. It's her purple piece, and actually, that's an entire study on how AI and someone who, because she uses a lot of physical handmade props in her work, and talking about how AI and where it fits in the work of someone versus sustainability versus actually hand making things. And so that's a very interesting episode that I think will cover quite a lot of the nuance of, I think, what also you're trying to say as well. So yeah, if anyone's listening, definitely go back and have a little listen to that one 100%. As well.
I've been really interested in the content she's making with it because she is using all of these physical objects and everything, but I've seen her experimenting with AI as well in that, and I don't feel like the intent is different in that. I feel like she knows what message, emotion, whatever you want to call it, is trying to be conveyed through this purple project, and it's still there. I can still see her intent in that, and I think people are very quick to be like, it's not right, it's slop, I don't want to see it and everything. And I understand that point of view, but what I don't understand is just writing things off because of it. I think to leave yourself open to all of this new tools, technologies and everything, to shut yourself off is probably the worst thing you can do right now, in my opinion. It's the worst thing you can do because it leaves out these fantastic creatives and artists that are using it in their tool set to create wonderful pieces of art. Maybe not totally, but it's somewhere in that process. And the intent is all still there. And the thing we love a lot about creative projects, the emotion and what messages they want to put out there. It's all still part of it.
I always think about it in terms of like the music industry as well. Like I can imagine, I mean, I wasn't as switched on with it at the time, but if you look at music and when sort of digital and synth came in and we were suddenly using computers to create music, especially, drum and bass, house, techno, all of these, we wouldn't have those genres if it wasn't necessarily for having that technology brought into music. And yet we still have this thriving, classical music is still thriving. We're still listening to it. Actually, Metallica's S&M album, which is done with a Philharmonic Orchestra, is one of my absolute favorite orchestras, which is bringing together the technology of like electric guitar and a full orchestra. That sounds really cool. It's a great album. I thoroughly recommend it. And if you look at how both of those things can exist, the music industry is thriving because we have technology in it and we also have all of these classical, the way that we all got really annoyed when we started streaming music and, now artists' music is more accessible to us. People can go on to TikTok and release their songs and make money and monetize it through other people creating stuff to it. It's fine. There's a nuance to how these things run and how we're using them and all around that, but at the end of the day, I think it does provide accessibility. And you're right. We should be openly curious. To what's going on around us.
And I think it also depends on where you sit in that creative industry of what opinions you'll have on it. If you're someone that is making stuff constantly with your hands and that is how you like to do it, you don't have to use it. No one's telling you to do it. But I find that talking to students and stuff, like, as a 3D artist, as a student, I always wanted like a nice soundtrack to the thing I was building, this short film or something, and to have certain tools that will allow me to do that now, because I didn't have the budget for it, like I couldn't do it. I think that's really cool as someone that doesn't have the means to do that. I think that's a nice thing, and I don't ever feel like I was against that. I've had a lot of like is this okay? Is this not? Is this okay?
Yeah.
Is it not? I think it's a roller coaster everyone goes through, and particularly with fears for it as well. But essentially, there are good and bad things about it, and I'd rather discuss them. And I don't mind people that are completely against it as well, because they usually have reasons. It's the people that don't have the reason for it or haven't done the research of it. Like, I spoke to Laura Jordan Bombach the other day. She was my luminary speaker at a keynote, and we were doing a fireside chat. She's such an awesome woman as well. I was totally fangirling when I went to go meet her and everything, and she showed me what she was going to present out in one of her sessions, and she had a little newspaper clipping of maths teachers protesting against calculators when they were first coming out.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like a really interesting one, because again, it's like a common thing. People used to think you weren't a photographer if you were using Photoshop, right?
Do you remember what people were like when sat navs came out?
Oh,
And you couldn't, when I did my driving test, you weren't allowed a sat nav. That was like, no.
Yeah.
And now you do it with a sat nav as part of you have to learn how to do it as part of your driving test.
Yep. And there are always like pros and cons to it, and I'm not denying that stuff like about AI and everything, although there are very interesting arguments for and against, like all of the kind of concerns people bring up. There are different sides to it, which I'm not going to get into now.
Not today.
Not today.
We'll leave that for another episode.
We'll be here like 4 hours. But I think being open about it and talking about it is the best way possible. This technology is shaped by the people that are using it.
Absolutely.
And if you don't want to be in the conversation, it's not going to be shaped to you. I think Siobhan said that on my podcast, and I really loved the way she phrased it. Siobhan Moroney, who is They Are Creative on Instagram, she's amazing and a great person to have on a podcast. She's such an interesting angle on it, and so good at talking about it and everything. But that's for another day.
Maybe we can get the link to that episode and put it in the show notes.
Yes.
Speaking of show notes, where can people find you? We'll put these all in the comments, but if anyone's been listening to this conversation today and is like, I need more Emily in my life.
I need more yapping.
Where are they coming? Where are they finding you?
Well, you can find me at 3Bisset, like Bisset, but with a 3 instead. I feel like I have to explain that. It made sense in my head, guys. 3Bisset at all major social platforms, or Emily Bisset on LinkedIn. I'm kind of doing a lot more on there at the moment. I found it sort of caters to what I like to blither on about a bit more, like on LinkedIn, sort of in long form. But you can find me on Instagram, TikTok as well. You found my personal
I just found
TikTok.
you. Was it your personal one? You just popped up on
But
there.
that's okay, because that one is, again, it's public and it's all my stupidity. But also Adobe Live keep tagging me on that one as well, like when they release stuff. And so maybe I should just condense it all into one. But yes, 3Bisset on most platforms. And then, let's link to Siobhan's podcast with me as well.
Yeah,
if
we'll
you want to
it's
hear
in
about
there.
more AI stuff, and just two lovely ladies having a good chat, as we have done today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure there will be people out there that are so interested and would love to continue the conversation with you. If anyone is watching at home and wants to reach out to either of us, maybe you have resonated with something that one of us has said, or maybe just want to continue the conversation about any of these topics. We are both chronically online people, and we both love having conversations with people. So reach out, leave comments, send us messages. We would love to hear from you. And if this podcast, you think someone else you know might want to listen in, maybe it would be helpful for them, send it to them, pop them in DM, leave some comments. Let us know that you're enjoying the conversation. And I will be back next week with another incredible episode. But until then, don't forget, you're not broken. You're just finding your user manual.